And we were all talking about, like, before that series, I thought that Jokic was just going to bully him down low.
What's up, everybody? Episode 22 of the BVSA Sports Show. We're back, just like we said we would be. Kind of a quick show for you guys today. Just going to run through a little NBA Finals update. Currently 1-1. Heat won last night, going back to Miami for Game 3. NHL Stanley Cup Finals update. Vegas took Game 1 at home, Game 2 tonight. And then we'll get into a little bit of baseball. Mets, Yankees, little Shohei Ohtani, and what that future might look like come trade deadline and off season. So let's get right into it. We talked a lot last week leading up to these NBA Finals. I actually made the mistake saying there were 2 1 seeds left. Boston was not the 1 seed. They were actually the 2. It was the Bucks that were the 1 seed. So a little correction there. But nonetheless, to talk about top teams remaining. And we have Denver. We have Miami. Pretty good 2 games, all things considered. A little NBA history made in Game 1. The Heat shot 2 free throws the entire game, which was the fewest in, I think, any playoff game in NBA history. They bounced back Game 2. We talk about it a lot, little parlay action of the 2 teams in South Florida playing in their respective sports in the finals, that we were going to take both of them, whether we're rooting for them or just trying to make a little bit of money off of them. I think both of these teams can win and will win, and even though both of them went down 1-0, the Heat bounced back. They flip home court advantage. So now the Heat are in the driver's seat, and I don't think they will win all 3 games at home, but I still believe that this team can win in 6 games on their home court for Game 6 in Miami. And the more interesting storyline to me is if the series ended today and Miami's winning, Jimmy Butler is not the MVP. So we were actually talking about this morning who that person might be. Bam Adebayo. I'm not going to try to remember first names, but Strauss or Vincent, a couple other guys. I think it would go to Bam as of right now. Jimmy Butler's playing fine. I would almost go the other way and say Nikola Jokic in a losing effort is more likely to win the MVP right now, which I can't imagine that's happened many times in NBA history, which is a conversation that we can lead into where it's any sport, losing team has the far better player, doesn't get MVP. We saw it in the Super Bowl with Jalen Hurts. We're going to talk about it in hockey in just a little bit. But bottom line to me, Jimmy Butler, as of right now, not the MVP, even the Miami Heat playing well enough to win.
So I would agree. I personally would like to see the Heat win. I've liked Jimmy Butler as a player, just wherever he's played. He plays with a different type of fire when he gets to the playoffs. And, like, they always talk about it in interviews. They're like, yeah, playoff Jimmy. And he's like, no, like, I'm the same player. And he always says it. But you see it. It's just a different type of, like, drive when he gets to the playoffs. Mm-hmm. And you see it in the first 2 games. He hasn't been scoring the ball well. Like, he hasn't been shooting well. He's they've been playing pretty good defense. Like, I mean, obviously the Nuggets are a deeper team. Like, they have a pretty insane roster, just fit for Nikola Jokic. So, I think as of now, it wouldn't go to Jimmy. I do think that he's going to bounce back. I think he's going to have a big Game 3. I think they're going to win Game 3 in my head because they're going home. I think he's going to have a big Game 3. I think he's going to score. Like, I think he's going to get over 30 points in that game. Mm-hmm. But, as of right now, he probably isn't going to win it. I'd probably go Bam. Gabe Vincent is playing really well too, but Bam has been pretty insane. And we were all talking about, like, before that series, I thought that Jokic was just going to bully him down low because he's just so much bigger. Like, Bam's the center, but he's like 6'9", 6'10", maybe. Yep. So it's like you just think the size and whatnot, but he's been playing extremely well. So yeah, I'd like to see the Heat win. I definitely would. I could see it in 6-2, them winning at home in that 6th game. But as of right now, I'd probably go Bam as the one.
The bigger conversation that I want to have is about that MVP voting, the MVP process. I don't like it at all. And I don't like it because, if it's LeBron James and it's basketball, or it's Patrick Mahomes and it's football, and chasing these greater pasts of Michael Jordan and Tom Brady, you got to have the hardware to match them. Yeah. And when it's all said and done, they're going to talk about how many titles do you have, how many times have you been there, and how many MVPs did you win. So that goes for regular season and postseason. So I'm not saying it's like rig's not the right word, maybe biased, or it's just like I have to give it to that guy. Like that Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts full out deserved it. It's almost like I wish they voted without actually seeing who won the game.
Yeah.
go blindly, person A, person B, person C, person D, quarterbacks or running backs, stats, and then go make your pick regardless of which team they're on. So the same thing could be said about the NBA, about any sport. Nikola Jokic put up 41 last night, right? He's going to be the far away the best player on the court every single game, regardless of what he does. So why does that get taken away from him if they lose, or if there should be a better process, in my opinion, across all sports?
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that so it's a difficult thing. So obviously we always go back to football with these things, just because I think that's just what I'm into the most personally for me. So I think about that game. If you were to just look at the stat sheet, you definitely would say Jalen Hurts is the MVP. Now, there are also the other things that happen that you don't see maybe in the box score like that. Like his fumble was big turning point in that game. They returned it for a touchdown, whatnot. And then you also think about hey, that game-winning drive, that was Mahomes that got it done. Mm-hmm. So it goes both ways. I agree with you for the most part that, yeah, it sucks to see, because if the Eagles win that game, I mean, no doubter that Jalen Hurts gets it. But because that Mahomes gets that game-winning drive, they win it, they're going to go with the winning team. It kind of happens in regular season sports too. NBA specifically, and NFL a little bit. They go off how your team did. So Jokic and the Nuggets this year, he definitely could have won the MVP because of how well his team did. I feel like it ended up changing just because they needed a different MVP because he won it 2 years in a row. But a lot of times they'll choose it based on your seeding, you're a top 3 seed, you led your team to this, and blah, blah, blah. And then they look at it like that. So that ends up factoring into it too. That's for just regular season, obviously. But, yeah, it's kind of a blurred line because it feels like there's not a lot of parity. It's just the same people over and over because you know how well they're going to play. Yeah. But I don't know. That's a difficult conversation for them to have. I feel like if you don't pick Mahomes in a year where he leads them far and they get 14 wins, and then people are going to be mad about it. But at the same time, it'd be nice to see someone else win it too.
No, absolutely. And think about it now, bring it to our world, bring it to baseball with the MVPs and the Cy Youngs for the regular season. I think it was, maybe 3-4 years ago, whichever season it was, that Jacob deGrom had a sub-2 ERA, but they weren't a playoff team, and his win-loss record was 9-8.
Yeah.
So how do they say, we can't give a Cy Young award to a guy that didn't even win 10 games? That's not necessarily in his control. Yeah. He can give up 1 run every game and have the lowest ERA in MLB history. There's no guarantee that his team's going to score for him.
Exactly.
So I just wish there was again, I don't really know what the solution is, but now tying it back into what we were just talking about with the NBA Finals, right? Jimmy Butler can go off the next 3 games, 4 games, 5 games. They can win the series. He can deserve MVP. I'm not saying that he shouldn't.
Yeah.
I'm saying if the route it's going, if Bam continues, like you said, maybe stuff that doesn't show up in the box score, the way he's defending the best player on the planet right now, right? His defense turned into offense, and his rebounds and his double-doubles and all that stuff. If Jimmy does well enough, he'll get the MVP. It won't even be a discussion, right? Take it now into our gambling world of before the series started, Jokic was far and away the favorite to win the MVP of the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. Jimmy Butler was second, slight underdog just because no one thought Miami was going to win the series. Yeah. After those two, there's a huge drop-off, and then it's Jamal Murray, Bam Adebayo, the next best player on each respective teams, mm-hmm. but it's not even close. Mm-hmm. Just because they're going off of this team should win, here's the best player on the best team, done.
Yeah.
I don't like it. I wish there was a better process, better solution for it. So maybe, just maybe, hockey has somewhere along those lines of a solution. Before we started here, we were talking about the NHL Stanley Cup Finals, which we can get into now. Vegas is up 1-0. Game 2's tonight. The MVP is called the Conn Smythe Trophy. Hockey's got all these weird names for every trophy. The Conn Smythe Trophy is the MVP of the entire postseason. Has nothing to do with the Stanley Cup. It obviously does have to do with the finals, but it's a course of 4 series, right? I can't imagine it'll ever go to someone not in the Stanley Cup, but I just looked it up. Since 1965, 5 guys on the losing team have gotten it, so probably a little bit better numbers versus any other sport we just talked about.
Yeah.
But I like this where it's more of a, it's a 28 game, possibly 20, 25 game sample size versus 4 to 7.
Yeah.
And then you go give it to the guy that not only won it in that moment, but also helped get you there.
Yeah, I like that. So just let me know on this. Is there a Stanley Cup MVP? There's just one for the playoffs.
Yep, so when they win the Stanley Cup, let's say Vegas wins, they will raise the Stanley Cup, and then the MVP of the entire postseason will raise the Conn Smythe. It could be a Vegas Golden Knight or it could be a Florida Panther.
So that's pretty cool. I kind of like that. Because that's another thing where you're giving credit to the whole road to winning or even just getting to the championship because of how hard it is, especially in the sports that have the 7-game series. So I do like that a lot. I think that could be pretty cool. So now the difficulty with that is I almost would is there a bias if the guy in the finals has a crazy series in the finals, like the Stanley Cup, but his playoff run was kind of then it's there's a differences there in opinion. So I almost think that adding one for just the Stanley Cup could be a separate thing as opposed to just the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just an idea.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be flaws in any system. But looking at this playoff run that both these teams have made, right, you can make the argument both ways. Sergei Bobrovsky for Florida has been playing out of his mind. You would think he would be the guy for Florida. But then you look at Tkachuk, who scored 2 overtime winners, and then the winner with 4 seconds left in regulation to get to the Stanley Cup in the last round.
Yeah.
So you have 2 cases there. Then you have Marchessault on the other end who scored 10 goals in the last 11 playoff games.
Insane.
So you have 3 guys as more of a greater landscape. So that's where I think it comes down to what you're saying is if those 3 guys are all in the running right now, 2 things are going to factor in. How the rest of the series plays out from here point on. And totally just lost my train of thought. But regardless, Marchessault, Tkachuk, Bobrovsky, you have 3 guys. It all comes down to the next 3 games, 4 games, 5 games, 6 games. The winning team, unfortunately, is going to play a part in it. It's always going to be a flawed system, but I really believe Florida still has this series going back to the very beginning, what we just talked about. Miami and Florida, those 2 teams are going to win. I think at least one of them is going to win, if not both of them. If I had to pick one over the other, it's Florida, no question about it.
Probably agree with you, yeah. I would go with you on that.
So with that, let's get into a little bit of baseball real quick. I have to touch on it. It's the one everyday thing going on right now. There is a little college baseball going on, but we're not going to pretend like we know enough about what's going on. The biggest thing we followed was West Virginia, just for, your brother goes there. Frank's son, Zach, plays there. They just got bounced. They lost, then won, then lost. So double elimination, just got bounced, lost to Kentucky the other day. Sticking with the Major League Baseball, you want to go with the Yankees first? They seem to have figured it out.
Yeah, so the biggest thing was the injuries. We have it every year. We got all the big guys that hit the home runs, and they always get hurt. It always seems to happen. So Judge had an injury. Thankfully, wasn't too crazy. Came back and has been insane since he's been back. Then we had, obviously, the Stan injury. You knew that was coming. It was bound to happen. Rather have it earlier in the year than later in the year, so not that bad. Came back first game, hit a home run. Donaldson was out. I'm not the biggest Donaldson fan right now in the Yankees, but he came back, hit 2 home runs. So you could see it, right? Their lineup can be extremely good when they're healthy. And pitching, it's been kind of up and down this year. Nestor just went on the IL. I think it's 15-day with shoulder or something, so that's not great. But Cole's been pretty lights out this year. Schmidt's been up and down. Recently, he's looked okay. Herman has actually been very good. I know we talked about the cheating thing, but he came back. Obviously, he didn't have it, and he did really well against the Dodgers. So that's good to see. Obviously, Rodon is something that we are still waiting on. It's kind of tough that, you get him and it's just injury after injury, and he just hasn't played a game. So hopefully he's not Frankie Montas when he comes back and actually plays. So, we'll find out. But, they've been hot as of late. I think it was they said they were 18-6 last month or something like that, along those lines. They were definitely coming up after being last in the division and struggling. So they are definitely on the upswing now. So we'll see what happens. Keep getting healthy and pitching stays consistent. Hopefully get some bullpen guys back too, and they could be definitely in a good spot. So not too worried.
Yeah, they're definitely trending in the right direction. Problem being they just play in such a tough division.
Very difficult.
Arguably the best in baseball. Every team is over 500. They're sitting 11 games over 500. If they were in the AL Central, they'd be leading. If they were in the NL Central, they'd be leading. If they were in the NL West, with the Dodgers and the Diamondbacks and the Padres, they would be leading. So
crazy.
It just goes to show you the level of competition they're dealing with within. I feel like the Rays have come back down to earth a little bit. The Orioles are still on the upswing. Toronto's kind of figuring it out. Boston is hanging around. No one really expects them to do too much. Yeah. So you guys definitely trending in the right direction, whereas the Mets, we're fortunate that we don't play in a division like you guys play in. Washington's in the basement. Philly can't get out of their own way.
It's crazy.
We are 30-30, just got swept at home by Toronto, and we're sitting 5.5 games behind Atlanta, and we're now traveling to Atlanta tomorrow for 3 games.
Big series.
It could be a big swing, right? Obviously 2.5 to 8.5 and a couple things in between as well. But they're just I can't put my finger on it. Old, right? They're not that banged up. Guys aren't performing. Lindor's getting very close to going under 200 for the year. McNeil's not putting up the average that he put up last year, which obviously was going to be hard to repeat winning a batting title.
Yeah.
Pete Alonso's putting the ball over the fence, also hitting his weight, like 235. So there really isn't any steady offensive production coming from anybody 1 through 9, right? Alvarez came up, started hitting home runs, little spark, great. Everyone keeps complaining the kids aren't playing. Then the kids play and they're not doing too well. Brett Beatty and Vientos and Alvarez. So the offense isn't clicking by any stretch. You can blame the bullpen and the injury to Edwin Diaz, but we can't even get there. The starters are not doing anything close, particularly the big three, Scherzer, Verlander, and Senga. Senga can't throw strikes. He had 1 or 2 outings where he was like exactly what we thought, 7 innings, less than 3 hits, 0 or 1 walks. But then his last start, 5 hits, 5 walks. Yeah, and I feel like that's the second or third time where his line has been 4, 5, or 6 in the hits, 4 or 5 in the walks, and the pitch count goes up, and there's this guy's on base all game, and it doesn't work. So he's still trying to figure it out, which obviously you knew he was going to be the clear third out of those 3. You would think Scherzer and Verlander have figured it out. Scherzer maybe a little bit starting to turn a corner. Verlander has not. Just simply put, has not. Maybe you hope he's on the same trajectory as Scherzer, where it took him 4, 5, 6 starts to get going. But we're 60 games in. I know it's a 162-game season. It's a long season. It's June. They are 30-30, and it's coming down to almost the next piece is come trade deadline time. Are they going to be buyers and try to push and squeak into a wild card and go up against those Braves and those Dodgers and ruin more of whatever's left of your farm system to try to go win a series or 2? I mean, I don't think they're going to be sellers, but they're going to be stuck in no man's land if they're at the spot they're in right now. Like I said, 5.5 behind Atlanta for the division, and they're 2 games out of the last wild card, chasing the Pittsburgh Pirates, and the Miami Marlins are ahead of them as well.
Crazy.
So I don't know where they go. I'm not one of those, what's the guy's name on Barstool? Frank the Tank, who just he lives for screaming on his phone that the season's over and blow everything up. I'm not panicking. What I'm telling you is they are running out of time to figure out their direction for the rest of the season. And they need to figure it out sooner rather than later. So the last piece that we could touch on a little bit, just because I saw it come up yesterday on my social media of all these trade scenarios for Shohei Ohtani. The Angels are fine. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure they're playing well enough that they're almost in the same spot as the Mets.
Yeah.
Naturally, I just closed the standings. They are in third. They're 8.5 behind Texas, 5 behind the Astros. And then in terms of a wild card spot, they are 5 back of the Yankees. So similar boat to the Mets. They're 31-30, so literally half a game better. A little bit further back just because the competition is better in the American League. But I can't imagine this team's going to give up Ohtani at the deadline. From a management standpoint, they should. They're going to get someone's whole farm for Ohtani versus letting him walk at the end of the year as a free agent. For the Angels should do it, but I can't imagine they're going to let him go in a month.
Yeah, that's a tough one. Because this isn't just any superstar. This is the guy, the superstar in the league. So, you're talking pitcher, hitter, going to make $600 million. It's very difficult because you already paid Trout his huge deal. He's not getting any younger, even though he's still Mike Trout, right? He's still playing well. It's no different. But there has to be a decision made now. And that's going to be a tough one for management. They have to decide, hey, are we going to get rid of this guy now and our fans are going to hate us and we're going to get a whole load back, but is it worth it? Are we going to figure it out? Are we going to try and make a run? It's it's a tough one. I think they should keep him, see what happens. Maybe they can squeak in and maybe somehow make a run. You never know, I guess, with those 2 guys on the team. But it's one that we haven't really seen before. This is a pitcher and hitter that is elite at both, and I don't know. It's unreal. I'm not really sure how they could treat that.
Yeah, just in terms of a franchise player walking away or being in this situation, it's not really comparable to the Islanders with John Tavares a couple years ago, but the principle of, hey, we got a guy that we can get something back for now, or let this season play out, right? Chances are they'll barely make the playoffs. They're not going to make any kind of run in that loaded AL as of right now. Right? So we can get a huge return back for him. It might be an unpopular opinion to our fan base, or we wait 6 months and he's got
nothing. Yeah.
So again, I think it's going to be too complicated for all the reasons you just said. Like, this is a once-in-a-lifetime generational player. We're not talking about just a normal franchise caliber player. I think it's way too complicated to let him to work out that whole deal mid-season while they're in some kind of a hunt.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to double down on what they did in the offseason, right? They went and got Urshela and Hunter Renfroe and Chris Drury. I think they're going to double down again, be buyers at the deadline and say, we're going to go try to make some kind of a push, right? The two teams in front of them, right? The Astros, I think, are on the back end of, you want to call them a dynasty, right? They're still playing extremely well. They're hanging on to whatever it is they've been running these last couple of years. Mm-hmm. Texas can fall back down to earth at any time. They're riding. Jacob deGrom hasn't pitched much, right? They're riding guys like Nathan Eovaldi, right? Middle of the pack, above average guys, the whole season just overperforming. So at any point, they can come crashing down a little bit. Things happen. All you got to do is get in, right? Baseball more than anything. All you got to do is get in.
Yeah.
So I think they would be crazy to let him go, despite what a team like, you insert any team, the Orioles and that farm system, right? You think about any team, even the Mets, I'm sure we can find something for him. But I think if he goes at the trade deadline, he's going to go to a lesser market like Baltimore, whereas if he waits for the offseason, he's going to a Dodger, a Met, a Yankee.
It's one of them. Yeah.
So a lot of moving parts there. That's the other last thing, too, is if he goes to the deadline, he's a rental. So you're going to give your whole farm away if you're a team like the Orioles and say, hey, we're winning it this year with Shohei Ohtani and the pieces we have in place because he's probably gone in 6 months.
They're not paying him.
You're screwing up your future for 1 to 4 years, maybe more, just to go chase a ring. And, he's worth it, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But you really have to believe, okay, we're going to sign him, right? It's like the Islanders with Bo Horvat. They go sell off all these pieces. The next day they signed him to an 8-year extension. So he no longer was a rental.
Yeah, there was a clear thought behind that.
I can't imagine Ohtani's going to be thinking about signing that deal. I don't even know if baseball works that way, signing an extension mid-season.
It's odd because baseball is tough because it's there's not really a cap. There's a cap, but everyone just pays the luxury tax, and it doesn't even matter. Yeah. And all these owners have billions of dollars. It's not really much for them, and they're going to make it back, I'm sure. You sign the big guy, he makes more money, jersey sales, all that stuff goes right back up, and they're fine. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be interesting. It's going to be something to watch for sure. It'll be interesting to see how the Angels play out. If 3 quarters through the season, we'll see where they are, and I'm sure we'll update and see how they're doing. It'll be interesting. Because I'm sure Ohtani wants to win. He felt that now with Japan. I'm sure he wants to get back there and win a World Series. Nothing more. So,
yeah, absolutely. Some will definitely monitor. Next 6 weeks or so, we're going to start leading into a little bit of fantasy football talk and NFL talk. But at the same time, right, end of July, MLB trade deadline, kind of see how this whole thing plays out. We always got to give our weekly little talk of baseball. It's what we do, and especially around here. So we'll keep an eye on that. That kind of does it for this week. Like I said, a little shorter episode, but we will be back on a more regular basis. Episode 23 will be next week. We'll see you guys then.
Later.